I always imagined that if my marriage ever crumbled, it would end in a blaze of fury, shouted words tearing through the air, or perhaps a flood of tears drowning us both in sorrow. But it didn't. It began quietly, almost innocently, with the soft clink of a latte glass, a fleeting smile, and a single name: Luca. Portland in November wears a shroud of gray. The rain doesn't crash down in torrents. It lingers, a steady drizzle that seeps into your bones. The city hums with a damp chill, streets slick and reflective under muted streetlights. Amid this gloom, Sam's Little Cafe, Chapter 1, stood as a beacon of warmth, the coziest refuge I'd ever known. She'd designed it like a page from a Victorian novel, golden lamps casting pools of light, weathered bookshelves lining the walls, the rhythmic clatter of her espresso machine weaving through the soft strains of jazz. It smelled of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon, a scent that clung to your clothes long after you left. Every Friday after work, I'd trudge through the rain to that sanctuary. Sam would greet me with a knowing smile, sliding an espresso across the counter, dark and bitter, just how I liked it. We'd talk about nothing and everything: the quirks of her regular customers, the latest book she'd pulled from the shelf, the way the oven's warmth mingled with the aroma of her freshly baked scones. Those moments felt like a ritual, a tether to the life we'd built over 7 years of marriage. That particular afternoon, the rain tapped a steady rhythm against the cafe's fogged windows as she poured my coffee. Her hands moved with the grace of habit, but her eyes sparkled with something new. "There's this interesting customer," she said, her voice light. "Luca. He's Croatian. His voice, it's like something out of a film, deep and rolling." I grinned, leaning on the counter. "Handsome, huh?" She shrugged, wiping her hands on her apron. "Decent, I suppose. Tall, blonde, bright eyes. But it's not that. It's how he talks. He reads Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, even Walt Whitman. He asked me what I thought of Mishkin from The Idiot. Can you believe that? No one's ever asked me anything like it." I sipped my coffee, letting the heat seep into my palms. I wasn't jealous, not yet. But there was a flicker in her gaze, a distant softness that unsettled me. It was as if she were peering into a part of herself long buried beneath the grind of running the cafe and keeping our home. Sam had always been a dreamer, her nose buried in books when we first met. I'd fallen for that, her quiet passion, her way of seeing the world through ink and paper. Lately, though, I'd seen less of that woman. Life had dulled her edges, or so I thought. From that day, Luca's name wove itself into our conversations like a recurring motif. Not in a loud, boastful way, but gently, persistently, as if Sam were narrating a story she couldn't put down. "You know," she'd say over dinner, "Luca told me people in Croatia don't bother with Tinder. They sit over coffee for hours, talking face to face, no screens between them. He said I'm the kind of person who reminds him of home." Her voice carried a wistful note, and I'd nod, forcing a smile. "Sounds like those passages you love," I'd reply, trying to keep things light. She'd hum in agreement, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. They drifted somewhere else, somewhere I couldn't follow. I told myself it was nothing. Sam was friendly by nature. It's what made her cafe thrive. But the shift was subtle, yet undeniable. She'd linger at the sink after dinner, staring out the window into the dark. She'd hum tunes I didn't recognize, her fingers tracing absent patterns on the countertop. And when she spoke of Luca, there was a brightness in her I hadn't seen in years. Not since the early days when we'd stay up late, dreaming of a future we swore we'd build together. One night, as I scrubbed dishes in our cramped kitchen, I couldn't hold it in. "How close are you with Luca now?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. She laughed, a sharp, defensive sound. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I just notice you talk about him a lot." "He's a regular, Ethan," she said, drying a plate with more force than necessary. "I'm in the service business. Chatting with customers is part of the job." I nodded, letting it drop, but the unease gnawed at me. I'd never been the jealous type. Sam's warmth drew people in, and I'd always trusted her. Yet now, I felt like a stranger peering into my own life, watching it slip through my fingers. That unease grew into a quiet dread. A few days later, something pulled me to the cafe earlier than usual. I'd found an old copy of Leaves of Grass at a second-hand bookstore. Sam had mentioned wanting it weeks ago. I thought it'd be a surprise, a small gesture to bridge the growing gap. But when I arrived, the counter was empty. Maria, Sam's part-time barista, glanced up from steaming milk. "Sam stepped out for a walk with a regular," she said, her voice faltering. "She'll be back soon." I didn't wait. Stepping outside, I caught sight of them down the street. Sam and Luca, strolling side by side. Her hand grazed his shoulder, a light touch that spoke volumes. They laughed, heads close. Luca leaned in, whispering something, and Sam's giggle rang out, her hand flying to her mouth. It wasn't the polite chuckle she gave customers. It was unguarded, intimate, the kind she'd once saved for me. My chest tightened. I slipped back inside before they saw me, my pulse hammering. When they entered, Sam's eyes widened, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. Luca, oblivious, flashed a grin. "Hey, hi there, buddy," I forced a smile. "Oh, Luca, right? Heard a lot about you." Sam jumped in, babbling about the weather, but her nervous energy betrayed her. The air between us crackled with unspoken words. That night, the dam broke. We stood in the living room, voices rising for the first time in years. "What are you doing with him, Sam?" I demanded. "Taking a walk," she snapped. "God, don't you trust me?" "You laugh with him like you used to with me. You look at him like I'm not even here." Her eyes blazed. "Because you don't listen anymore, Ethan. I've been screaming in silence for 2 years. You're always at work, buried in your projects. I'm just wallpaper in your life." Her words hit like a punch. I'd never seen it that way. I worked long hours at the ring shop, crafting custom pieces, thinking it was for us, for our future. "I thought I was showing you I cared," I said, voice cracking. "Luca gets me," she shot back. "He doesn't need me to spell it out. He looks at me, and I feel like I still matter." "So you're betraying me with your heart." "I don't know." Her voice faltered, and she turned away. Sleep eluded me that night. Sam lay beside me, her breathing steady, but I knew she was awake. Her back formed a wall between us, unyielding and cold. At 2 a.m., I gave up, retreating to my study. I stared at the computer screen, hands idle, my mind racing. How long had she been drifting? When had I lost her? The next day, I couldn't resist. I returned to the cafe unannounced, standing outside in the drizzle, peering through the glass. Luca sat at the back table, Sam across from him. Their heads tilted toward each other, laughter spilling out. She reached over, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead, a gesture so tender it stole my breath. There was no mistaking it now. That night, I crossed a line. While Sam showered, I took her phone. Guilt gnawed at me, but desperation overruled it. I needed the truth. It wasn't locked. A pinned WhatsApp chat glowed under the name L. My hands trembled as I scrolled. "Luca, you drove me crazy today. That cream dress, do you know how stunning you are?" "Sam, you make me feel beautiful. Ethan hasn't said anything like that since 2021. "Luca, I want you, Sam." Not just stolen afternoons in the cafe, but for real. Every night, every morning. "Sam, I don't know. I'm confused. But I want that too." The words seared into me. I felt hollow, as if the ground had vanished beneath my feet. I'd thought I could hold us together through sheer will, but I couldn't cage her heart. I acted fast. I printed the chat, laid it on the breakfast table beside a divorce petition I drafted in the early hours. When Sam stumbled into the kitchen the next morning, hair tousled, she froze at the sight. Her eyes darted from confusion to dread. "You went through my phone?" she whispered, voice barely audible. "I had no choice. You're not the woman I knew." She lifted the papers, hands shaking. As she read, her lips pressed into a thin line. Tears brimmed, but she fought them. "You spied on me. You controlled me," she said, voice quivering. "I loved you," I countered, "but you betrayed me. Every word in there, it's a knife in my back." "I was lonely," she cried. "You weren't there. I called out and you didn't hear. I needed to feel like a woman, not a ghost in this house." You chose the worst way to make me see. She broke then, sobs shaking her frame. It was the first time in months I'd seen her so raw, but I couldn't comfort her. I grabbed my coat and left with one final blow. We're not us anymore. We lived like strangers under the same roof, waiting for the divorce to process. She tried to reach me, sometimes with soft pleas, sometimes with sharp accusations. I met her with silence, my shield against the pain. A week later, a text lit up my phone. I'm pregnant. I stared at it, unblinking. No rush of emotion, just a void. I replied, we'll do a DNA test after it's born. Until then, I've got nothing to say. Her response came after a long pause. I believe it's yours. I know I messed up. Please, don't shut me out like this. I left it unanswered. I hired a lawyer, meticulous and sharp. I gathered evidence, chats, receipts of gifts, and hotel stays tied to Luca. 3 weeks later, he vanished from Portland. Sam didn't explain. Maybe he'd fled the mess he'd made. Maybe he'd taken what he wanted and moved on. April brought the baby, a boy with striking blue eyes that mirrored neither mine nor Sam's. I waited a week, then insisted on the DNA test. The result was stark, 0% paternity. I sent her a photo of it with a single line. This is why we can't go back. She didn't reply. Her father called the next day, his voice a roar. You heartless bastard! She screwed up, but the kid's innocent. Then you raise him, I said quietly, hanging up. The divorce finalized. I kept the house and my ring shop. She took the cafe, her old car, and a child no one claimed. Word reached me that Luca was in Europe, posting vlogs with vague hints about a past fling, never naming Sam. I didn't pursue it. Revenge felt pointless. 2 months later, she texted, You killed me with your silence, but maybe I killed myself the day I let my heart fall into someone else's hands. I read it, felt the weight, but didn't respond. I'd expected closure with the DNA result, a lifting of the burden. Instead, emptiness lingered. Sam's presence haunted the house, her gray scarf on the hook, her purple teacups on the shelf. One day, I found her old leather journal in a drawer. Her handwriting danced across the pages, familiar and alive. One entry stopped me cold. Some days I wake up, watch Ethan sleep, and feel like the luckiest woman alive. But other days, the distance between us feels wider than an ocean. I don't know when I started dreaming of someone else. I closed it, returned it to its place. Some truths cut deeper when it's too late to change them. 3 months after the birth, Sam called late one night. Her voice was ragged, a baby's cries piercing the background. I don't need anything from you, I just want to talk. I hesitated, then said, Go ahead. I've never felt so small, she confessed. Being a mom, alone, broke, friendless. Luca's gone. He vanished like he was never real. Pity stirred in me, unbidden. You can hate me forever, she continued, but if I could go back to that first night with Luca, I'd turn away. No one can go back, Sam, I said. We both chose. Yeah, she murmured. But if you love again, remember, women don't need much, just to be seen, heard, loved like they're still the first. She hung up before I could reply. Weeks later, I bumped into Maria at a bookstore. She hesitated, then whispered, Luca wasn't the first. I stiffened. What? Last year, Sam got close to an Italian guy. Read poetry, talked for hours. I saw them holding hands once behind the counter. I didn't say anything, thought they were just friends. The revelation hit like a second betrayal. Luca wasn't the start, just the end of a pattern I'd been blind to. I thanked Maria and left, reeling. I'd lived with a stranger wearing Sam's face. A year later, I saw her at a book fair. She pushed a stroller, a boy with brown hair and eyes, no trace of me or Luca. Another mystery, perhaps. She smiled faintly, I nodded. She approached. How are you? Okay, I said. Her son peered up at me, curious. He didn't know me, nor I him, a ghost of a life that might have been. Before leaving, she said, Thanks for not destroying me when I deserved it. Your silence saved me and broke me. I watched her go. For the first time, the anger was gone. In its place, a quiet farewell echoed in my mind. Goodbye, Sam.